I rested my hand on the cool glass of my office window, the skyline of Chicago stretching endlessly before me. The sun was just beginning to dip, painting the glass towers in shades of gold and rose. From here, the 47th floor of my building, the streets below looked almost peaceful, like tiny veins carrying the heartbeat of the city. The silk of my cream blouse whispered against my skin as I moved, the faint scent of jasmine from my perfume lingering in the air. I liked moments like this, quiet, powerful, private. Moments where no one could guess the price I'd paid to stand here. Then my phone buzzed. I glanced at the screen and froze. Ethan Gray. My cousin. The same cousin who, 5 years ago, had smiled in my face while sliding the keys of my small but hard-earned office into his pocket, with the full blessing of my own family. My thumb hovered over the answer button. I could almost hear his voice already. Smooth, casual, pretending nothing had happened. I let it ring twice before picking up. Hi, Ethan. My tone was even, but my heart was hammering. He hesitated, just for a second, before saying, I'm downstairs. In the lobby. A slow, ironic smile touched my lips. Well? I murmured, glancing out at the tower's reflection in the glass. Come on up. Because this time, he wasn't walking into my office. He was stepping into my tower. 5 years earlier, my heels clicked against the scuffed hardwood of my first office, a cramped but bright space on the 6th floor of a worn brick building in the West Loop. It wasn't much, but it was mine. I'd painted the walls myself, a pale sage green, and hung the thrift store art that I swore looked vintage rather than cheap. Every file folder, every chipped coffee mug, every late-night scribble on my notepad represented hours I had clawed back from exhaustion and doubt. I'd just landed my first real client, a boutique design firm, when Ethan showed up that morning. Tall, confident, with that effortless smirk he'd been perfecting since high school. He didn't knock, he never did. Ashley, he said, drawing out my name like it was part of a joke only he understood. Uncle Robert thinks it makes more sense if I take over this office. You're still figuring things out. The words hit like cold water. What are you talking about? I leased this space. My voice shook despite my best effort. He shrugged, looking at the window like he already owned the view. Yeah, but the building owner's an old family friend. Dad's worked something out. You'll get a smaller place for now. Smaller. For now. I remember gripping the edge of my desk, so tightly my nails dug into the wood. My grandmother's silver fountain pen, the one she'd given me at graduation with the words, "Write your own future," lay between us. It suddenly felt like the only thing in the room that was still mine. That afternoon, I packed my files in cardboard boxes while Ethan leaned in the doorway, chatting on his phone about paint colors for his new office. I kept my eyes on the floor, because if I looked up, he would see the tears threatening to spill. As I carried the last box to my car, my phone buzzed with a text from Grandma Helen. Remember, the best revenge is a life they can't touch. That night, sitting at my tiny kitchen table with the pen in my hand, I decided I would never again let someone take from me what I'd built. If they wanted me small, invisible, dependent, they were going to be very, very disappointed. I didn't have a business plan. I didn't have investors. What I had was a pen, a laptop with a cracked corner, and an anger so sharp it could cut glass. The first few months were a blur of late nights and early mornings. My new office was a corner table in a 24-hour coffee shop near Wabash Avenue, where the hum of the espresso machine became my soundtrack. I'd wrap my scarf tighter around my shoulders against the draft, sip burnt coffee, and send emails to anyone who might need a freelance marketing consultant. Most didn't reply. Some laughed at my rates, but a handful said yes. One of them was Mary Ann Keller, a marketing director for a local eco-friendly skincare line. She was in her late 50s, sharp as a tack, with a red leather notebook and a laugh that made you sit up straighter. "You've got potential, Ashley," she said over lunch one day. "But you need to stop thinking like a freelancer and start thinking like a CEO. Build the system, then scale it." Mary Ann became my unofficial mentor. She introduced me to people, tore apart my amateur contracts, and once even called me at midnight just to say, "Don't you dare undersell yourself tomorrow." With her advice, I took my first big risk, leasing a tiny shared workspace downtown. No nameplate, no receptionist, but it was mine. I worked out of that space for 2 years, stacking one client on top of another, quietly building a team of freelancers who would later become my employees. And I never posted a single photo of it online. When family asked how work was going, I'd smile and say, "Keeping busy." I let them think I was scraping by, hustling for rent. I never mentioned that my revenue doubled the second year, or that I'd landed a Fortune 500 company as a client, or that by year 3, I was buying out entire floors of a commercial high-rise under an LLC no one in the family knew existed. There was a quiet thrill in it, walking past Ethan's office building one afternoon and knowing that my name was on deeds and contracts for properties he didn't even know I controlled. By the time I turned 31, I had what my grandmother would call a life they can't touch. I'd acquired the tallest, most prestigious building in my part of the city, a glass and steel giant whose shadow stretched across the very block where my first little office had been stolen. The irony? One of the tenants on the 12th floor was a small marketing agency run by none other than Ethan Gray. Every time I signed his rent checks into my account, I'd think of that day I carried boxes out to my car. The sting had dulled, replaced with something far more satisfying, the knowledge that he was now working under my roof. And he still had no idea. The elevator ride from the lobby to the 47th floor is exactly 52 seconds. I know because I've timed it. It's the longest 52 seconds of most people's lives when they're about to meet me unexpectedly. When the door slid open, I saw Ethan step out. Same smug walk, same tailored navy suit, though there was a faint tension in his jaw I didn't remember before. His eyes darted around my reception area, the sweeping glass walls framing the city, the polished white marble floors, the abstract art that cost more than his entire apartment. He gave a low whistle.
Wow.
Nice office. I smiled without answering, motioning for him to follow me. My heels clicked softly against the marble as we walked past my assistant's desk, Lena, who gave him a polite but curious glance, and into my private office. Floor-to-ceiling windows stretched behind my desk, the river winding like a silver ribbon far below. On one side, a wall of shelves held awards, books, and a single silver fountain pen in a glass case. He didn't notice the pen, but he did notice the gold plaque on my desk. Ashley Carter, CEO and owner, Carter Holdings. He blinked. Holdings? What do you hold? Buildings, I said simply, leaning back in my chair. This one, for example. I watched the moment it hit him. His mouth opened, then closed. You own the building? All 52 floors, I confirmed. You've been working here for, what, 2 years now? 12 floors down. Color crept up his neck.
Wait.
My agency is a tenant, I said, my tone calm, almost casual. Your rent checks clear on the 1st of each month. Thank you for being punctual, by the way. For a long moment, the only sound was the hum of the city through the glass. Ethan's eyes flicked around my office again. The art, the custom desk, the subtle personal touches. I could see the math happening in his head, the years between then and now, the way he was rewriting his version of my story. You never said anything, he finally muttered. I folded my hands on the desk. No one asked. He gave a weak laugh, but it died quickly. Look, about back then. I held up a hand. Don't. You did what you did. And I did what I had to do. He sank into the chair across from me, looking smaller than I'd ever seen him. So, why'd you call me up here? I tilted my head. You called me Ethan, remember? You said you were downstairs. He hesitated. I might need help. Business is slow. The lease is expensive. That, I said, is between you and your landlord, which, in case you forgot, is me. The air between us shifted then, the balance of power turning fully, undeniably, toward me. I didn't gloat. I didn't need to. The view, the office, the fact that he was literally sitting in my chair's shadow, it said everything. I can work with you, he said quickly. Maybe we could merge. No, I interrupted gently, but firmly. If you want to stay in this building, you'll have to meet my terms. And they'll be different from what you're used to. His brows knit. What kind of terms? You'll find out, I said, standing to signal the conversation was over. But let's just say they involve more than money. They involve growth.
Change.
And a little humility. He stood slowly, glancing around one last time. You've really built something, Ash. I walked him to the door, my smile polite.
No, Ethan.
I built everything. When the elevator doors closed behind him, I turned back to the window, the city lights flickering on one by one. Down on the 12th floor, my cousin was heading back to his office, still under my roof, still paying me rent. Only now he finally knew. 2 days later, Ethan requested a formal meeting in my office. I almost laughed at the phrase. When he arrived, I noticed he'd traded his usual navy suit for something more understated, gray, with no flashy tie. He looked cautious, like a man stepping onto thin ice. He sat across from me, placing a folder on the desk. These are my numbers, he said, sliding it forward. I thought, maybe you could take a look. I glanced over the pages. Declining revenue, rising expenses, a high-end office space he couldn't really afford, except he didn't realize I'd given him one of the lowest rates in the building. You want my advice? I asked. I want your help, he admitted, his voice lower now. I know I don't deserve it, but... I closed the folder and met his eyes. Ethan, you were given everything once, including my space. You didn't think twice before taking it. He swallowed hard. I know. I was young, arrogant. You were selfish, I corrected softly. And now you're here because the person you underestimated is the only one who can keep you from losing everything. He didn't argue. I leaned back. If you want to stay in this building and in business, here are my conditions. He straightened, like a soldier waiting for orders. 1, I said, holding up a finger. You cut your overhead in half. That means moving your agency to a smaller suite in the building. If you're smart, you'll focus on quality clients, not trying to look impressive. He nodded slowly. 2, I continued. You take on 2 interns from the community college scholarship program I fund. You'll mentor them, pay them fairly, and teach them without exploiting them. You'll report their progress to me personally. His brows rose, but he didn't protest. And 3, I let the pause hang in the air, watching him shift in his seat. You make amends. Not just to me, but to every person you've stepped over to get ahead. You know who they are. I don't need proof, but I will see the changes in how you run your business. He looked down, his jaw tightening. That's a lot. It's less than what you took from me, I said evenly. The silence that followed wasn't awkward. It was heavy, necessary. Finally, he let out a breath and said, I'll do it. I smiled faintly. Good. Because I don't invest in people who won't invest in themselves. And Ethan, this isn't charity. It's business. You do your part, and you'll have a future here. Fail, and the lease ends. He stood, looking a little unsteady. You're not the same Ashley I knew. No, I agreed. That Ashley had to leave, so this one could exist. As he left, I caught a glimpse of him in the glass wall, smaller, humbled, but maybe ready to change. The pen in its glass case caught the light, a silent reminder. Write your own future. And I had. Over the next 6 months, I saw subtle but unmistakable changes. Ethan moved his agency to a modest corner suite on the 18th floor. The glass walls were smaller, the view less dramatic, but the space had an energy it never had before. The interns I'd sent him, Maya and Jordan, stopped me in the elevator one afternoon, grinning ear to ear. He actually takes time to teach us, Maya said. It's different here. Jordan nodded. He told us you're the reason he still has an office. That last part surprised me. Ethan wasn't known for giving credit. Sometimes, I'd see him in the lobby, holding the door open for clients or carrying his own boxes instead of having someone else do it. He even started attending the networking events my company hosted for young entrepreneurs. At the last one, he approached me with 2 glasses of sparkling water and said, For the record, I'm glad you didn't shut me out. I accepted the drink, meeting his eyes. For the record, I almost did. That night, alone in my office, I walked to the glass case on the shelf. My grandmother's silver fountain pen gleamed softly under the recessed lighting. I unlocked the case and held it in my hand. It still felt the same, solid, balanced, a little heavy. The weight of it reminded me of those early days when I thought the pen might be the only valuable thing I owned. Grandma Helen's words echoed in my mind. The best revenge is a life they can't touch. She was right, but I'd learned something more. The real victory wasn't just building that life. It was deciding who I let into it. I capped the pen and set it back in its place, right where it belonged. Outside, the city glittered against the night sky. I could see the 12th floor lights still on, a small glow against the dark glass. Somewhere down there, my cousin was working late. Not because he had to impress anyone, but because he was finally building something the right way. I turned back to my desk, my reflection in the window framed by the lights of a tower I owned. Write your own future, I whispered, the words more powerful now than they had ever been. And I had written mine in steel, glass, and sky.